afternoon, readers. It's Tilly here from Tilly Shelf, and this morning I forgot to film a bookish breakfast, and I think that's the first time that that's happened, that I've just completely forgotten, compared to other times when I haven't been able to because of work or other reasons like that. And I think the reason is because of last night. If you may have been subscribed to my mum's channel, Scally Dandling About the Books, you might have noticed that we got up to some entertaining antics in London and got our hands on some copies of Hilary Mantel's The Mirror and the Light, which is all very exciting. And I think I was just so tired this morning that I completely forgot. But I have now remembered, and I haven't yet had lunch, so I feel like I can technically still call this a bookish breakfast. So today I'm going to be fulfilling belatedly my duties as a Sagalong co-host, and I'm going to talk to you finally a little bit more about the Saga of the Volsungs, which was written by an anonymous Icelandic author in around about 1270. So I actually promised the other Sagalong co-hosts, I was like, yeah, my video's going to go up on Sunday, it's definitely going to go up on Sunday, but then just various things got in the way. For a couple of days my phone just decided to die. Well, you know, just to do that phone thing where I just didn't want to talk to the world, and that is the only means I have of filming, so I was kind of scuppered. So I had an excuse for like 48 hours of the time that I was late by, and then, you know, I was going to and from London and working in and other stuff. So yeah, excuses. But today, here we are. It's the Saga of the Volsungs. So I chose this for my saga to read in the last 2 weeks of February, as part of the pick and choose segment of Sagalong. I don't think that anyone has read this with me other than my mum Roz and my partner Bo. Bo, this is the first saga that Bo has read, and he wasn't raving enthusiasm about it. I think he enjoyed elements of it and found it interesting, but he didn't find it particularly gripping. But I think it's all a question of how familiar you are with sagas, because let me tell you, compared to some of the sagas that I have read, thanks to Sagalong, not saying that they're bad sagas, they've all been really, really interesting, but this one was the one that had the best pacing and, to me, the best plot. So the Saga of the Volsungs divides roughly into, I would say, into 3 parts. So the first part is about the mythical foundations of a dynasty, and it is about the creation of the people of the Volsungs via various mythical means, in terms of there are relationships between godly figures and humans. There are like people pulling out swords from trees to show that they are like the rightful person to take on like roles of heroism. And I've read a couple of people who have written about the book and who have compared some of the themes to a sort of a Greek style creation of heroes that are part human, part god. And the foundation of this dynasty eventually works its way through a variety of interesting mythical scenes to the creation of the character of Sigurd. And the second section, or the second of what I see as the second section, is the story of how Sigurd gets his hands on a pile of cursed gold, because what would be a great fairy tale without a pile of cursed gold? So Sigurd, one author that I read, Kevin Crossley Holland, in the Penguin Book of Norse Myths, he described Sigurd as a King Arthur of the Northern World. So he's this semi-mythical character to whom many great acts are attributed, and one of those acts is the slaying of the dragon Fafnir. Fafnir is one of numerous characters in this saga who are both creature and human. There are a variety of people who are able to shapeshift, and Fafnir is one of them, and he shifts into something that is variously translated, sorry, I've got a cat here that's mewling, as a serpent or a dragon, depending on which part is translated, or I guess you could call it like a worm, like spelt with a Y, as in the kind of Old English beast. And Sigurd develops a stratagem for slaying this dragon, who has taken charge of some gold which is already cursed when it... No, she doesn't doesn't want to join in. It's already cursed when it comes to the dragon, but it is cursed again when Sigurd kills the dragon. And there are a couple of interesting scenes where the dragon is dying, and they are like talking about the gold and the consequences of the gold. Another recurring theme throughout the saga, but particularly in this first half, is about the idea of predicting the future and fate. So along with this idea of the gold being cursed, there are also multiple scenes about, for instance, prophetic dreams, and also people actively consulting fortune tellers and finding out what their future holds. There is even a chapter in which Sigurd goes and consults an oracle, I suppose, and it says that the oracle told Sigurd exactly what was going to happen in his future, exactly as it came to pass, and he kind of like accepted it and just carried on going and just accepted everything that they said and basically just took it in his stride. Which is interesting. I suppose they were kind of reconciling notions of fate with the notion of a hero that kind of is able to deal with ideas of his own mortality, I suppose, or ideas about his own fallibility, because obviously if the oracle did tell Sigurd exactly what was going to happen as it was going to come to pass, it raises questions for later points in the story where he is tricked, because, you know, surely he knew the outcome of that. So yeah, interesting, peculiar. So Sigurd slays the dragon and he gets his hands on the gold, and this is when, to me, the saga moves into the third phase. So the third phase is about what happens to the cursed gold when it is in the hands of mortals, and theoretically this is where the saga moves from the realm of myth to the realm of legend. And my edition has got a lengthy introduction, which I've not finished reading because I just can't quite focus on it, in which it basically tries to map the characters from the Saga of the Volsungs onto conflicts between the Romans and the Burgundians and various tribes that were being pushed and pulled around by the advance of the Huns. And there is a character called Atli, in my edition, who is supposedly linked to Attila the Hun. I personally was not really convinced by the argument that all of this story was like based on historical facts, purely because it's very hard to grasp the connections, and it seems to be multiple different historical events combined together. I've just seen a van arrive outside, and I think they're bringing me my wedding dress, so in a sec I'm probably going to pause filming and go. Exciting. Oh, they're knocking on the door now. Okay, you probably didn't sign up for a wedding dress unboxing when you open this video. I've been waiting for this to come for a couple of weeks now. I am a relatively thrifty person, as you might know if you have been watching this channel for any particular length of time. You might notice that a lot of my books are second-hand and so on. And so is my wedding dress. So it's come all the way from the United States from somebody who had it before me, and it got held up a couple of times en route. Too excited to open this slowly. Box is just full of little bits of, are they cornstarch? Snow! Surprisingly light. Oh my god, so many layers. It's like an ogre. We're getting there. Oh, it opens at the bottom. There we go. Cool. Well, it seems to be in one piece. I just remembered that she told me to open it really carefully because I'd probably catch the fabric in the zip. But I managed to do it without catching the fabric, even despite not paying attention to that advice. Lovely. Well, I'm going to get that out properly in a bit. But let's finish talking about the Volsungs. It's just like little pieces of starch everywhere. So that's actually a timely intervention, because what this second part of the book is in large part is a love triangle. I mean, no love triangles involved in my personal wedding, but it transitions into being quite an interesting romance story. And in contrast to what some people said about the Laxdela saga, it's actually a relatively believable love story. There are characters in here that I really feel do have very passionate feelings for each other, and also very loving and stable feelings for each other. But this being an Icelandic saga, even though it was written based on the pre-migration period, so from Central Europe, based on events from that time, I mean, this being an Icelandic saga, it doesn't end happily for the parties that are involved in the romances. So the latter half of the saga, it allegedly turns a story of a broader conflict in Central Europe into a story of a interpersonal conflict based on romance. So it was a way of explaining the wider socio-political context by means of almost like an allegory of conflict within families or between lovers. So it's interesting in that way. And then when Sigurd dies and the main kind of protagonists die and a couple of the key interesting female characters die, because obviously this is a saga, and sagas are really good for having interesting women, interesting female characters, one of whom in this is like a shield maiden and, you know, really determined to keep her ability to fight in battles and so on. When these characters die, there's a little ending section to the saga where it kind of like loses its way a little bit and kind of meanders off into the distance. And the thinking is that that last section is a way of tying the saga's characters into the ruling family of Norway, so to give them some kind of credibility, linking them back to older heroes. So that's a little bit of a summary of the things that go on in the Saga of the Volsungs. I don't want to go into too much detail in terms of telling you exactly what happens in the plot, because I feel like the plot is one of the strengths of this, so you can enjoy it through reading it instead. What else did I have to say about the Saga of the Volsungs? Do you know what? I think I might have mentioned most of the things that I wanted to say. Like I said in my previous video, what's really enjoyable about this is the way that it feels like a fairy tale, and some of that is obviously going to be to do with the translation, but some of it is to do with the fact that the initial part of the saga is based on myth rather than on legend. So it's not like the kind of saga where you start with a massive long list of lots of different people's names and when they moved to Iceland and where they live, because this is all way back and much further distant, so that kind of detail is less required, and it was probably written, the text that's in here is based on numerous sources, but the saga itself was probably written down by one author who used a range of previous sources to bring together into their tale, and because it was written down by that one author, it is a work of one person's creation where they have been able to put in important items of like symbolism and plot and so on. So it's got coherence and it's got structure in a way that a lot of sagas do not. So yeah, so a strong recommendation for the Saga of the Volsungs from me. I had a wonderful time in Sagalong this year. I really hope that there will be future Sagalongs, because I feel like the more sagas that I read, the more I get out of them. Particularly the sagas that are more set in Iceland, the ones that are linked together. It has been a pleasure to begin to see those connections a little bit more. And equally with this one, the Saga of the Volsungs, I've already mentioned that it was inspirational for Tolkien. It was of interest to William Morris. It had an impact on, is it Wagner? Yeah, Richard Wagner. I can't, probably not saying that right. When he wrote the Ring Cycle, he was influenced by this book, which does feature sort of magical rings. Not magical at all in the same way as Tolkien's magical rings, but yeah, rings that have symbolic weight. So in terms of its cultural impact as well, I think this is a saga that is very worth checking out. So thank you very much for watching, and I will just edit this together a little bit, and I will speak to you soon. Bye! Oh, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that yesterday, while my mum and I were in London, we filmed a short discussing drama video. I tried to post it from London, but my phone didn't want to play. So I will probably post that maybe on Saturday. So it'll be a little bit weird because it will be like, oh, we're in London and we're going to go to an exciting event. But that event will have been in the past. So just to let you know, if you're watching that and you think, oh, didn't they already do this? Yes, we did. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hope that all made sense. If you have read the Saga of the Volsungs or have any other sagas that you wish to recommend or anything to say about Northern European myths, legends and fairy tales, just let me know in the comments. Bye!